You are watching Bygone Treasures, your source for everything history and geopolitics, now in session.
Usually are. The sirens sounded very loudly, and I just sat there for a few seconds, staring at the screen with the word "launch" displayed in bold red letters.
When it comes to history, the power of distance and those who are able to relate to it are frequently essential. Its value may be obscured by the passage of time. There is a possibility of losing real facts. The truth may not be revealed for decades at a time, depending on the circumstances. It would be foolish to dismiss certain stories since they cannot be concealed, and it would be dangerous to do so. They convey an enduring and universal message, and they may even serve as a cautionary tale. This was the situation with the events that occurred in October of 1962, when humanity arrived at a scary new place. When two countries, both with newly acquired nuclear capabilities, looked each other in the eye, the entire world held its breath in anticipation. On October 1st, 1962, 4 Soviet Foxtrot submarines propelled by diesel engines set sail from their base on the Barents Sea and embarked on their journey to the Western Hemisphere. Assistance in establishing a permanent military presence in Cuba is the objective of their mission. Premier Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union has shown his support for his new communist ally Fidel Castro, as well as Castro himself. In a completely covert manner, the Soviet Union is putting offensive nuclear weapons on the island nation, which is located right at the doorstep of the United States. Because the United States has already put nuclear missiles in Turkey, equipped with the capability to quickly reach major Soviet cities, Moscow is looking to achieve a balance of power. Early in October, American reconnaissance aircraft provided a clear image of the Soviet Union's plans in Cuba.
This urgent transformation of Cuba into an important strategic base by the presence of these large, long-range, and clearly offensive weapons of sudden mass destruction.
This brings the administration of President John F. Kennedy to an unpleasant truth, which is that nuclear tensions are on the verge of escalating to a crisis point. When the citizens of the United States examined the proof, they came to the realization that this was a much more dangerous situation than anyone had anticipated. As a result, when the President of the United States, who was himself a combat hero, addressed the American people and stated, "We've got a problem," everyone sat up and took notice. The resolve of President John F. Kennedy to take decisive action regarding the Cuban crisis. Now for the situation at the Defense Department, here's Peter Harkis at the Pentagon.
Additional sites not yet completed appear to be designed for intermediate range ballistic missiles, capable of traveling more than twice as far, and thus capable of striking most of the major cities in the Western Hemisphere.
To summarize, Ray, we are continuing to take photographs from above. As of now, we have not observed any indication that the Russians have ceased the construction of those missile sites, and our military operations, which include the blockade, are still in full force. We now know that the Soviet Union has decided to transform Cuba into a base for communist aggression, into a base for putting all of the Americans under the nuclear gun. During that period, you could rely on the news from the United States. It is possible that they would have had a greater chance of receiving orders from Moscow if they could listen to long-wave broadcasts. A possible solution would have been to either project the antenna higher into the sky or come to the surface. However, doing so would expose their position, and since their mission was to break through that roadblock, they shouldn't draw too much attention to themselves. Things reached a boiling point on the 27th of October. Just to the south of Bermuda, the Americans made a successful capture of the B-59. You are being followed by powerful sonar, and you are aware of this. In addition, they beep continuously. It is quite disarming, and similar to a crack on the hull, it is noticeable. It is so annoying that it drives you crazy. You are aware that they have located you, right? That object is going to hit your submarine and everything is going to be jolted. And to tell you the truth, you start to feel like you're going crazy. Even though you have not become unruly, it is as if pure energy is streaming through a full ship, including through you and all of your equipment. You are unable to see and you are unable to hear. I mean, you can hear them, but you are no longer able to see them. There is no way for you to determine which direction they came from. The United States Navy had the submarine cornered and took action while Kennedy was in the process of getting into a deal with Moscow. Charges in the depths, prepare to get alerted. Immediately report any damage that has occurred, compartment commanders. If you have ever been underwater and heard an explosion, it is something that grabs your attention. The vibration is present. They were aware that they were in a precarious spot. The Russian submarines were experiencing a significant amount of shaking. What they were attempting to accomplish was to convey to them that we were on your side. During the time that we were following you, they were almost hurling something that was about the size of a large hand grenade.
Kill a modern submarine with an underwater A-bomb.
This will cause the submarine to shake and it will give them a bang. When it discharges close to the submarine, or if there hasn't been a discharge yet, it will cause the submarine to be thrown around and they will be aware that the ships on the surface have captured them. The subsequent events were not brought to light until 40 years later. It was up to one Foxtrot commander and his brigade chief to decide whether or not to launch a nuclear missile, which would ultimately determine the fate of the entire planet. They are aware of our whereabouts. They could launch a depth charge directly on top of us, but they chose not to have that happen, and we believe that he believed that that was a signal for them to come forward, and all of them had to have faith that the Americans were not going to bomb them out of the water when they did that. Therefore that was a danger. From my point of view, it was without a doubt the luckiest day for all of humanity today. The day was mostly successful for both sides. No matter who looks nice or who looks ugly, history will tend to forget about them. Commander Savitsky did not fully comprehend the goals of the Americans until he surfaced, at which point he also recognized that the United States of America and the Soviet Union were not at war with one another. A submarine was not something that the Americans were interested in destroying. It was because of the heated debate and argument that Brigade Commander Archipov had saved not only himself but also the entire planet from a terrible and gloomy destiny. On the morning of the following day, American warships arrived to take a closer look. As the Soviet crewmen gathered in the fresh air, there was a sense of tranquility that pervaded the atmosphere. As well as providing the Soviets with food and smoke, the Americans also provided a jazz band to welcome them and photograph the events that took place. The B-59 continued to fly on the surface for the duration of the daylight hours that followed, with the Americans taking the lead. During this time, negotiations were taking place behind closed doors in Washington, D.C., with the hope of reaching a peaceful settlement to the problem. Premier Khrushchev made a deal with the United States to remove their missiles from Turkey in exchange for Khrushchev's agreement to remove his missiles from Cuba. By the time darkness fell, the batteries of the B-59 had been completely charged. An instantaneous submersion and disappearance occurred while it was concealed by the darkness. The United States Navy made every effort to track down the submarine, but it was too late. It had vanished into the annals of history.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba.
History is often shaped by such fragile moments where the courage, restraint and wisdom of a few determine the fate of many. The events of October 1962 stand as a stark reminder of how close humanity came to catastrophe and how narrowly it was averted. Through the haze of time, we see not just the drama of near disaster, but the enduring power of diplomacy, reason and humanity. In those tense days, the world learned that even at the brink of annihilation, the choices made by individuals, visible leaders and those operating in the shadows can turn the tide. This is the enduring legacy of the Cuban Missile Crisis. In the face of fear and fury, rational minds prevailed and the world was given a second chance. Let it serve as both a testament and a warning, echoing through the corridors of history for generations to come. This has been Bygone Treasures. Enjoyed the content? Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment below. Your support keeps us going. Let us know your thoughts.